Okay. Okay, welcome everyone. This is a public information meeting for a rezoning application we've received at 123 Highland Avenue. So I am recording this just so everyone knows, and this will be posted on our YouTube channel, just so other people can consume this information. And this is just the very beginning of a process. So amendment to our land use bylaw goes through a bunch of different steps that I'll outline towards the end. But this is really an opportunity for the applicant to come in and explain the intents around the project, the direction, how they're responding to our policy framework here in town. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm just going to go through a bit of big picture stuff, where the town is at, talk about our housing needs a little bit. I'm going to be very brief on the actual application. I'm going to allow the developer to come up, introduce themselves, and do a presentation, and then we'll do a question and answer. Typically, that's mostly towards the applicant, but I'm obviously here to talk about the town's role and the process and when our planning committee and council will get involved. So we're here because there's a request at 123 Highland, which is abutting Highway 101 on the very south end of the town, to go from medium density residential to high density residential zone. So we're looking at permitting up to 120 dwelling units with net zero design being the intention. So I just want to zoom out as part of this to talk about the need for housing in the province right now. So what I'm showing on the screen right now is just a cover from the most recent housing action plan from the Nova Scotia government. So this is a 5-year action plan. And to the right of the slide, it gives some highlights of the need in the province. I would encourage people to look at the whole document. This is just a single page, but a summary of this is to keep pace with population growth, the province will need 71,600 new units by 2027, 104,800 by 2032. So this is significant. This is something that we've been working on in the town, the region is working on this, and obviously the province and federal government, everyone's involved in trying to lend a hand to this situation. Our needs assessment that we've recently had completed by Turner and Drake outlines what our needs are, and I won't read through all of this, but the highlight of it is that we do have a current shortage of over 160 units. This jumps to 830 by 2027 and over 1,700 by 2032. So the greatest needs in the shorter term are young family housing that's attainable for young families, and seniors housing, both now and into the future. Housing the baby boomer generation is obviously a big part of what the province is doing right now. The biggest gap here is the average rate of construction in the town of Wolfville has been about 25 units per year. So when you look at these numbers and you look at projects in the planning pipeline versus what actually gets built, there's a big gap. So there's probably need to have more units than this planned, because as I've presented to our planning committee and council in the past, just because someone has a planning approval doesn't mean that they're going to build a project. A big part of the overall needs work was around non-market housing. So this is housing that is subsidized in some capacity. In the town, we have the Western Regional Housing Authority with some units here, very large wait lists. We do have some co-ops in town, but there's significant need on the non-market side, and there's really not a big culture or history of, in the most recent past, of the province building public housing. So hopefully this is something that this new action plan from the province is going to address, but the needs are fairly vast, and the problem is complicated. So part of the work that the town has done in working, I'm zooming up now to the federal level. So the federal government did pass a national housing strategy a number of years ago, and one of the initiatives that have come out of that that's been actioned more recently is the Housing Accelerator Fund. So myself and community planner for the town, Lindsay Slade, have worked with council to submit an application, and there was just an announcement recently that we were successful in attaining some of these funds. So the town is moving forward with quote unquote accelerating housing. What this means in our context, this is a bit of a simplified version of the initiatives that we have committed to. And this rezoning is very much a part of that, is trying to move forward. So public education is really huge. Sharing our housing needs, identifying needs across the entire spectrum of housing, and trying to socialize what some of the changes will be in advance of moving those through the political process. The biggest one here is obviously encouraging more housing supply. That's the big thrust of this fund. So part of our actions are appropriately zoning properties, looking at waiving fees, reducing parking requirements, and there's other actions that we're looking at. So these will come with planning document changes. We're moving a couple of rezonings forward in the shorter term, keeping in mind that there is a municipal election in October. So we will start an actual plan review, looking at our land use bylaw, municipal plan with the new council. The other couple pieces of the strategy that we have funded now is working with the university on a bit more of a detailed student housing strategy. So they've done a bit of work with a consultant very recently. And we're trying to work with them on identifying some of their land to bring it into more investment ready status, and look at how we can work together on addressing what is a slightly different need that the students have in the town. The last piece is something that we're going to start with the existing council group, and that's working on our non-market housing offering in the town. So we've started to look at forming a working group of stakeholders, creating a non-market housing strategy and bringing some of those partners, whether it be co-ops, nonprofit providers, and others forward to help support them get their projects off the ground. Some of them have projects in the pipeline without capacity. Some of them have land. Some of them are churches and other groups that want to provide housing that just haven't been able to. So this is, as I say, this application that we're talking about tonight is very much in that green box that I'm talking about at the top, where this is very much more on the market housing side. This isn't a non-market housing provider that we're working with at this point. That could be part of this, and that may be a question that is asked at this meeting. I would be remiss if we're not sort of overlaying the climate crisis with what's happening with housing. So in 2021, we did complete a climate action plan that was largely funded through Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And so these are just a few little clips that the title block of the plan. We have our flood risk mitigation plan there, also completed around the same time. On the right, there's a bit of a summary there on the two sort of lanes of action that often dictate a lot of the funding. So on the mitigation side, there's a number of actions we've identified, and on the adaptation side, the biggest one being flood protection, but there's infrastructure upgrades and other pieces there. With housing and the built environment, such a big, over 50% of our emissions when we inventoried everything are coming from buildings, whether that's residential or commercial. And so moving forward and having people come in and respond to some of this is really important. If we're building new things, they should respond to contemporary challenges. On the right of this, this is what people call a wedge diagram, and in the climate plan, there's a breakdown of many actions that sort of make up the gap between if we don't act as it's labeled, and at the bottom, if we do. So all of these projects contribute. If you open up that plan, you'll see that there's many, many actions that are needed to move the needle at all away from what is called status quo in our climate plan. So I'm not sure why this is going in behind. Sorry. That helpful. So let me. There. So this is a zoning map of the town, and this is a more recent iteration of the plan. You can see in the east end of town, so on the far right of this slide, some new zoning categories that were created as part of the East End secondary plan. So the zoning category being sought in this rezoning application does come out of that more recent work. So that's the RMDU that you see there circled. I can point to it hopefully. So it's here. And the intent, just in the early stages of us thinking about some of these zoning changes, there's some key sites around the highway. We have Woodman's Grove, which is already a bit of a higher density node in the town. We have the two sites in the middle of town. One of them is before us tonight. And then there's an ongoing development in the west end of town that also needs more attention given what was approved there at the time, what challenges were being faced, and what's happening now. So that'll be brought into the plan review along with some other sites. But what I'm trying to show here is this zoning category that we're considering tonight is really not suited in all locations of the town. So when we looked at it in the East End, we were trying to be quite thoughtful of keeping it out of a view plane. It backs onto an open space. It doesn't abut directly up against other properties, so to speak. It is buffered, and with the other properties, particularly along Highway 101, this is an appropriate scale to be sited next to a highway, which is really far from sort of a walking human scale when you get into 2 or 4 lanes of moving traffic at high speeds. So that's some of the bigger picture intent. This is just a different view of that with an air photo, the same sites identified. But if people are more familiar with this and not the often somewhat confusing zoning map. So just back to the issue at hand this evening. So we are looking at a request to rezone 123 Highland for up to 120 dwelling units. There are 2 sites. There is some existing housing on the site to the south. I think there's just over 4 acres of land here. There's 2 road accesses. And again, it does abut directly against Highway 101. It is well located on a collector street that comes in from the Gaspereau Valley. So Highland Avenue does connect into the broader region. And we've also just made a significant investment in active transportation on Highland with more to come. So this type of project connecting into some of the investments that we've made is certainly important. I just have a couple more here. So this type of ask is not something that staff approve in our office. This is a process that goes through approval by council as well as reviews by some of our advisory committees. So there's a number of considerations outlined in our municipal planning strategy that have to be considered when we're doing a rezoning, and I would encourage people to look at some of those. It's fairly broad and quite comprehensive as far as different things that we really want decision makers and staff to turn their minds to as they're considering these types of changes in the town. And just overall process here. So we're doing a public information meeting on this file tonight. We will go back after this and we'll likely receive other feedback outside of this meeting. So we'll compile feedback, we'll do our analysis and prepare a report for our planning advisory committee. We're anticipating that will be in front of the planning committee in April. So I think that's sort of toward the beginning of April. And planning committee is tasked with making a recommendation to council on this. Council will consider this at committee of the whole and take it into an actual council sitting for first reading of changing the bylaw, move it to a public hearing, and a decision is made. So it's similar to development agreements. In some ways, the very last few pieces are slightly different. Just where this is fairly nuanced, but with the development agreement, we wouldn't actually move from committee of the whole to council. And in this context, we would, where we're dealing with the land use bylaw. So just finally, there's lots of ways. This is really early in this process. Staff haven't spent a ton of time on this file yet. So there's lots of ways for the public to be involved. So attending meetings, direct contact with staff, and we're very available to sit down with people and chat through issues depending on people's comfort level in attending public meetings. Letters or emails to council or staff or to committees as well. And there's also the opportunity to make presentations or some type of representation in front of planning committee. So yeah, again, my name's Devin Lake. I'm the director of planning for the town. Very open to receiving feedback directly. And community planner Lindsay Slade is also at this meeting, and she can also be contacted through our website. So I'm going to ask the applicant to come up and deliver an overview of the application. And I will just maybe get that ready and we can go right into that, I'm hoping, and then we can both answer questions at the end. Lindsay, is that already open? It's here, right? It's. There it is. So this is a PDF. Okay, share screen. So I'm going to get out of your way. You can come up and sit here. I can sort of take over after you finish up.
So I assume folks can hear me, and thank you for this opportunity to present our project. I'm Milford Hammerbacher, the CEO of S2E, and we are the developer. So we got to figure out how to change. There we go. We are the developer for the landowner at 123 Highlands. And as Devin said, we're looking to have an application in for a zoning change on the project. First thing I have to always say when I'm introduced to a different audience is we're not a typical real estate developer, and you might, by the rest of this talk, understand why. The thing that animates us as a company is we do a lot of different things, but there's a strong thread through everything we do that is we want to have a positive impact on the environment and build a better place for future generations. And so like Devin had in his presentation, climate change, we think, is probably the largest problem that man has ever created for itself. And I feel obligated for our company to try to do something about that. So that's why we're here. The land developer really appreciates this thought. And we're going to try to make something really special at 123 Highlands. And I'll even go beyond that. Since we've been coming to Wolfville, I personally have fallen in love with the city and the cooperation between various aspects, like the university and the city. We had just a really incredible meeting this morning with Acadia, the city, and the Kings County Transit. Everything's related, so there's a holistic solution that we think needs to be used more than everybody in their silos. So one of the things in order to do what we're doing, you almost always have to work on the cutting edge of technology and design. And we've got lots of examples where we've done that. At the end of this presentation, I have some pictures that I can show if we have time. But we've done some pretty cool things. One of the other things that I think might differentiate us from a lot of developers is we believe strongly in engaging with stakeholders in the beginning before we even have a full idea of what we want to do. And so that's what we've been doing the last 6 months. We've had lots of meetings with Devon and really asking what does the city want? You know, what would you guys like to see? This property, what's an ideal application for doing something that can help this community? And we've had great feedback from government folks, the university, from private businesses here, all the kinds of stakeholders that you might expect to have an impact on a project like this. And we have more to come. And so we're always open for suggestions of what stakeholders we should be talking to. So a very common question is why? Why Wolfville? So we're a relatively small company based in St. Jacobs, Ontario. So what drives us here? And you know, one answer is, you know, the whole world, I believe, needs the kind of things we're doing. So you could probably do that anywhere. So why would you go to some place that doesn't get what you're doing? And from the first meeting on, we've concluded that Wolfville definitely understands what we're trying to do in terms of having an impact on the environment. And you have all the ingredients to really make something like this happen and happen fast, because we don't have a lot of time. If you saw the goals that Devon put in terms of housing needs and climate change needs, we have to work fast. So we want to work with communities that know what we're trying to do and agree with what we're trying to do. So, and that's, you know, definitely the community that we've come to know here. So what we're wanting to do with the 123 Highland site is, as was said earlier, we're looking to develop 120 rental units. These will, so right now, we're just now getting replies from our requests for qualifications from several different architectural firms. And so the design has not been, we have some concepts, but we have no real strong direction in how we want to do the design. We're still collecting feedback from folks, and we want to see what architects can come up. But it does have to meet a few requirements from us. And, you know, one of them we state here is net zero from an energy standpoint. That means in this particular site that we'll generate all the energy from solar that we use in the site over the year. But we go way beyond just building buildings and just building any energy efficiency stuff. It's about building a community. So we're also looking at how we can save green space on the site, how we can connect to the rest of the community through transportation, and not only transportation, but low impact transportation. And that's kind of the main thing we try to achieve. Right now, they're projected we would have 144 parking spots, but those do not and probably will not be all surface parking spots. One of the technologies we brought to other projects of ours are parking towers, like a carousel, where you can park up to 16 cars in this tower and take the land space of 2 parking spots. So definitely the landowner wants us to look at trying to use that to minimize surface parking spot. If you minimize surface parking spot, then you got more places for playground, community gardens, and things that I think is a better use for land than paving paradise. The community will also be an all-electric community. We've had very good success with using all-electric air source heat pumps. And so that really reduces the amount of energy you use to heat and cool your units. So much so that in the buildings we've done, the heating and cooling is not the largest energy load in the house anymore, which is a pretty major accomplishment. The major load is things like these TVs and the things you plug into the wall. So pretty interesting. So preliminary concept, and this is very preliminary. we're looking at a 3 to 4 building kind of a layout. The access is 2 places on Highlands. And the long skinny thing here is a footprint if we put these parking towers in here. And the reason we want to put them along 101 is there's a lot of noise along. So this will serve several purposes in terms of parking the cars. It will also be a sound barrier to the community. And since this faces basically south, it'd be a pretty cool place to put solar panels too. So those are thoughts, nothing for sure yet, but when my team gets their creative juices going, they can come up with some pretty interesting things. So really, what are the opportunities for Wolfville at this? So we really think this design should meet public interest. And our goal is to do things that people are going to copy. And one of the really pretty encouraging things to me is we've had talks with lots of other developers here in Nova Scotia, and every one of them want to know about what our experience has been on this journey of building more sustainable, lower footprint housing and buildings. So we hope to make this as iconic as possible so people will copy it. I think one of the things that we should look at is, the kind of possible attention this could bring to Wolfville as a leader in this. We've had very gratifying experience of this little condominium neighborhood we're building in London, Ontario. We were recently recognized by CNN as one of the 10 top architectural projects in the world, and something that will affect future generations of how buildings are built. And so a little town like London, Ontario is now up against a lot of cool projects around the world. There was only 2 of the 10 in North America. We're the only ones from Canada. So that's the kind of thing I think should be an aspiration of Wolfville. I think we have an opportunity to do much neater stuff. And one of the reasons why is the cohesiveness of this community where everyone seems to talk and work together rather than, living in their silos. So next steps, we're obviously looking for this rezoning, but we're continuing to do stakeholder interface, working together. Although we want to do this quickly, we also are always open for suggestions and what might work better and serve the community in a better way. We also want to hear concerns. There's always room for improvement, and if people are concerned about things, we want to hear about it. Also, always looking for being pointed out who other stakeholders we should talk to, neighborhood associations, that sort of thing would be interested. The one thing I would say is I will kind of consider this as a failure if this is the only project we do in Wolfville. I just think there's so many things we can do with the community, with the university. I want this to be one of our bright shining spots where we've had an impact. So that's kind of the end of the presentation. I can open it up for questions, or I can show you 3 slides of pictures. Okay, show the pictures. Sure. So this is the condominium project I spoke of. It's called EVE Park, and EVE stands for Electric Vehicle Enclave. There are 4 of these down in the lower left-hand corner is a render of it. There are 4 of these helical design buildings, and it goes up from 1 story all the way up to 4 story, and there's 1 to 3 bedroom units. And at the end of each one of these helixes are the parking towers, which you can see here. We got a car in the top of that parking tower. So these towers are not new to the world. There's a lot of these in Asia, but this is the first one in Canada. And our team has done a little bit of innovation. Is this tower is able to charge electric vehicles, which sound, that's easy, you just put a plug in it. But Electric vehicles do not like to be start-stopped in terms of charging. It can degrade the battery, so we have to keep current to those cars as they're rotating around and so our team worked on that, and we accidentally stole the technology from the carnival ride industry, which has lots of moving things that they have to keep power to all the time. And so that was the innovation of this. We're pretty excited about this, and we think it can really change the way we ruin good land by putting up parking lots. And that's been the process. I'm happy to say that we're doing this in 2 phases. The first 2 buildings are now occupied. I don't have the last picture of this where it's at. They're occupied. The last thing we have to do on these parking towers is get the certification from the safety authority that is in charge of this. And then we've got phase 1 finished with Eve Park. And that is a net zero community, by the way. And so you don't see it here except for in the renders, but we're able to supply all the energy for the buildings themselves just with the solar panels on the roof of this. So one of the things that shows is how energy efficient these buildings are compared to a normal 2-bedroom unit. It doesn't take a lot of energy to meet its needs. So that little Eve Park is 4 acres of a much larger project that we've been involved in for 13 years now, or 12 years now. And that community is called West 5, also in London Hydro. It's a 70-acre community. When it's completed, there will be 2,000 living units and about 500,000 square foot of commercial retail space. We're about 30% complete. My company partnered with the developer of this, which is Sifton Properties. My team developed the whole concept of how to make this a net zero energy community, but it's much, much more than just energy. There's all kinds of sustainable features to it and features that make it more of a community. Just to give you a flavor of how deep we go into what a community should look like back on Eve Park, why the circular building? Well, one of the things we've kind of identified, and this is my personal opinion, one of the things that have destroyed community connection is the automatic garage door opener. Because you can just drive home, open the garage door, go in, close the door, and never have to say hi to your neighbor. Yeah, anyone familiar with that issue? And so with this, the parking is convenient, but to get to your door, you got to walk through this courtyard of cool scenery. And guess what? You might accidentally run into your neighbor and say hi and have a conversation. So that social aspect was part of the intentional design of the community. We did that on a larger scale with West 5 here. We've got a community kind of park, central park, where people can congregate and get to know their neighbors. And then the last, for something entirely different, we were partners with a developer in this resort in Punta de Mita, Mexico, which is a little north of Puerto Vallarta. A lot of people are familiar with Puerto Vallarta. And the concept here was a slightly different take on sustainability. Energy really wasn't the issue, and the crazy government at the time really made it not almost prohibitive to do solar. But water was important. This is on a very protected bay, so our team spent a lot of time on how we can not let a drop of water come from the resort into the bay there. So there was a lot of really interesting sustainable stormwater management, landscaping that went into the design of this. And this was just completed last fall. It's completely sold and it's a gorgeous place. Really, we're pretty proud of being part of that. That's my pictures. Questions? Anyone want to go down to Mexico right now?
Check, 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 check. We are on.
My name's Caroline Whitby and I live here in Wolfville. I have to say, from what I've seen of it very quickly, it seems really exciting. what you're planning to do. Um, I could see the pictures, and the parking garage like is of particular interest to me. Like, around, is it noisy? How long do you have to wait for your car to come up? And some of those logistical pieces are
questions that I've had to answer many times.
Okay, yeah. So I'd like to learn more about the parking garage per se. So the Eve Park,
Right.
is that a similar acreage to the acreage here?
Actually, it is. I do not think we'll do that concept here, but
Okay.
it's almost identical, same acreage as what 123 Highlands is. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And I'm just interested, so you're looking, and Devon I may be wrong here, but you're requesting 120 units, but you're looking to do it only up to 3 stories, which is quite interesting to me because my understanding is the town brought in MDU and allows it to go up to 6 stories. And so I'm really excited that you think you can do this in only 3 stories, which I think is great. So I'm interested in that. I'm also interested to know, you talk about 120 units. How many of those will be, I'm going to say, for families? Like,
Right.
maybe will there be a variety of 3 unit and 2 unit and 1 unit studio?
Yeah, yes. Okay, so you may have to remind me because there were a few, so on the parking tower, it's incredibly quiet. Um, there's one electric motor that runs that, there's no rattling or anything, so it's a very quiet, so our new tenants in our condo have made many comments. Oh, I thought it'd be noisy. You can't hear it, as we've been testing it. In terms of how long, it depends on where your car is in that. We have lots of things to make this a more consumer friendly product. And right now in Ontario, we have a silly regulatory system that's not allowing us to do some of those things. So right now, this is classified an elevator in Ontario. And so elevators have special things because if an elevator breaks, it plummets to the bottom and kills somebody, right? If this breaks, nothing happens. These cars, if you take all the motors off, they slowly come down by gravity. But that's kind of some of the issues with that. So I digress a little bit there. So it's probably an average of 45 seconds to get a car from the tower to being able to pull it out. And in typical situation, we'll have several of these towers. So, we've done some statistical studies. Will there ever be a line of 10 people waiting for their cars? And we're pretty comfortable with that's not going to be an issue in the future. If we can get regulatory approval, we want to be able to have an app on your phone. If you're going to want your car 15 minutes from now, you can call it up in your phone and it'll be down at the bottom when you're there waiting for you. But we have to get a few things approved in order to do that. In Ontario, we'll see what Nova Scotia is going to be like. So, in terms of what is going to be the mix of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, we have some more market research we want to do on that. So right now it's a unknown. Right now, the market research is telling us that 2 bedrooms are going to be by far the most in demand. So there'll definitely be a lot of 2 bedroom, but will we do some 1 and 3 bedroom? Not known yet, but we're always open for suggestions. If you see a bigger need for 1 bedroom or whatever, now's the time that we need to collect that information while the design, especially the internal design, is wide open at this stage. Did I get everything? Seemed like I missed something. Oh,
Can I speak to that?
yeah.
So one of myself and my wife Jennifer work, been here 15 we got asked to commit that project from our Donnie here who was connected to Milford. We had, Jen and myself, we were very protective of Woodville, of the community, of how it is here, children are all high school. We were, one of the biggest concerns we had, we didn't want to see anything that stood out and didn't fit in with the community. That was one of the biggest concerns that we brought their team like this. And again, didn't want, straight up tower that downtown, actually, there was nothing in that we wanted. Our suggestion was in the town, with the town, that we felt we needed something very community with possibly having garden center and that type of thing. And that's what we brought to the table with Milford and Donnie and then their concept.
We don't want to see Wolf. It's just don't. I mean, really want, here's what you. That can.
Especially the sprawl. I have periods of mines. And
Oh, sorry, the sprawl is coming this way. They're gonna push, there's nowhere to build down there anymore, they're gonna start pushing towards us, so with the town of Wolfville, the more, with this project especially, like Milford spoke about, they have plans on
kind of the flagship to show design future down the road in our. So that was the main, and basically, once we put that to them, and all of a sudden they kind of answered our concerns. They called land ownership. Of course, the 2B project, that height is kind of ideal. We also didn't want, if you look at the way that land's laid out, those stories won't get too much of the trees because we want to areas in place and not affect, like Milford said, not affect space that's there now, right? That was kind of how that part, I guess, would begin, and then Milford and his ran from there.
Economics drive that a lot. We want this to be as affordable as possible. And anytime you get over 3 stories, you're in a different building code, which has a lot of things that increase the cost of that construction. So that was a pretty easy for us line to draw, is keep it under 3 story. And we're not even sure we'll need 3 stories yet. We're going to leave it up to some creativity from our architects before we make a final decision.
Hi, my name's Jason Hall, and I live at 17 Highland,
Okay,
so I do have.
you're a neighbor? Great.
vested interest
Yes.
in going on up the street.
Yeah.
As does my neighbor Joyce Popper, who lives at 15 Highland. Powered me to speak on her behalf.
Sure.
Our concerns are transportation. Maybe Highland is starting to, a bit like highway. Elementary school plus the university. And just it here, which is never observed, whereas the general 50. So, and to add to that, at the T junction at Main Street, there are no traffic lights, which is fine with me, except that it block at certain times. Very difficult. And dangerous for students and pedestrians. So I guess my question is about, you said 100 Highland. How that can be addressed in terms of the usage.
So it's unfortunate Devin came back because I was going to put all that on him. But it's but it isn't. That's why I love this town. I guess I'm repeating myself, is because, and my feeling is we have to work together on things like that.
I guess the question is, like, have you looked at using the densification downtown area. Wonderful car parking.
Yeah.
You have some space.
I,
in
I,
the downtown area where rental building could be built. If you look at European towns.
Yeah.
The size, much denser in the downtown.
Yeah.
Historical.
so actually, there's a company called, Country of Cities that has kind of been almost like a Bible to us as we've been looking at how to create more sustainable, and the whole, flavor of that, book is to increase density. Don't sprawl out, as, Sean was saying, um, and, we were just gung ho, that's the way we have to go. Let's not mess up our countryside and our agriculture. Let's go up in the cities. And then what happened? COVID. And everybody's leaving the cities. So then, okay, how do we change that? Well, there's a lot of small towns and cities throughout Canada that have been suffering for years. They've lost populations. They've got a lot of brownfield sites and things like that that can be used for better purposes. So that is definitely something we want to do. And like I said, this would be a failure if this was the only project we do. So we actually did a little tour today of possible sites more in the downtown area. But that brings other things, is you don't want to lose that feel of your main street right now. That's just such a great attraction of this city. So if you add density down there, you gotta pay attention to how it blends in with the rest of the community. Back
I
to,
think there's some
yeah.
agreement. Town has it.
Yeah, but back to
Feel-
your concerns about traffic,
Should be.
back to your concerns about the traffic on Highland. So one of the things, being a pretty avid environmentalist, is that we've got to get people out of cars. That's not going to happen overnight. So one of the things that we've created another business in West 5 and E Park is a electric car share. So several things there is, unbelievably now, the average cost of a car maintaining their year is over $15,000 a year. That's a lot of money you put into your car. Guess how much a car is used in average in Canada? 5% of the time. Second biggest investment you make besides a home is a car, and you're using it 5% of the time. So the idea of sharing a car and keeping fewer cars on the road, that's one thing. I think there's in Devon, and we've had a lot of conversations. We got to make room for like a bicycle trail from 123 Highlands to downtown or the Main Street area. And so, okay, well, bicycle, that's only going to work for young people. Electric bikes have changed the whole format of that. So we're 10 kilometers, our site in London from downtown. That's a 15-minute ride on electric bike down a very scenic bike path through some beautiful sections of London. And so those are the kinds of things we're looking. I was encouraged to hear that we're looking at some more mass transit, I think is what I heard you say, along Highlands to also reduce that traffic. And then like the school thing, I have personal experience. I live right up the hill of a school, and for years, it's a dangerous actually intersection because there's a blind spot and cars would be flying through. The city solved that pretty easy. They put in traffic cameras. Well, you know what? People don't drive through there at 80 kilometers an hour anymore. They drive through at 30 kilometers an hour. And so I think there are some solutions to that, to where we can provide the housing that's desperately needed in Wolfville and the whole world actually as a high housing crisis, but do it in a way that it doesn't affect the lifestyle and the living environment of the neighbors. That's a really critical aspect of this. So.
Is there a piece there that you wanted me to comment on, Jason?
I was just speaking, concerns about traffic flow. Volume increased with 120 units. There's already issues.
On Highland specifically, I think once we have some of the AT work finished there, we're hoping that we can do more traffic calming on Highland. You're going to see some traffic calming rolled out through another funding source that we have to build an active transportation network around the entire town. And a big part of that is actually slowing traffic down. So if you know there's different names for these. I call them speed cushions. They're sort of wider speed bumps that have been installed on Sterling. We're looking to install those on other streets, north-south streets. I mean, really, from our perspective, the slow and steady throughput is what we're after, and not people tramping it at every opportunity, which is, I think, part of the reality, like certainly that I've experienced in Oldville. So we're trying to change some of the geometry and make it a little more complicated for people to really easily drive through certain sections, particularly around the elementary school. I don't know if that was brought up, but that was a big priority for us for this initial investment around active transportation is over the medium or long term is try to ease some of the congestion that we're seeing around the elementary school for drop-offs.
Sort of at full capacity now.
Do you mean full Highland and Main Street? Yeah, I don't. So we're gonna move the crosswalk this summer to the west a bit as part of connecting the Highland AT corridor to the Harvest Moon Trail. So you're gonna see a raised crosswalk put in there this summer, connecting around the Festival Theater in front of the Farmers Market, and we're paving the Harvest Moon Trail along to Harborside. That may help a little bit at that intersection, but that was part of the reason that we put in that left turn lane when we did those more recent upgrades. So some of these intersections, I mean, when we do a traffic study, it's really a monitor for medium and long-term changes. And so it may be warranted to have something signalized there in the future if we get past those warrants. It's kind of part of that debate, similar at Gasbro, where we've had this long-standing debate around the level of service of that intersection, whether there should be a light there, whether there should be a human in the intersection doing traffic control during busy times. And we've looked at these things a number of times. So I think, like when we approved the East End, the recommendations that come out of that are really pay attention as the units come online. We usually have a list of standard interventions. One of them is often traffic control. So that may be the future there.
In my experience, I've seen too many municipalities where the development happens and then they worry about traffic later. And I think the coordination that I'm seeing here is that we can hopefully avoid that kind of delayed reaction. And traffic studies are part of any kind of a development that we'd have to definitely want to participate in. So, yeah.
So I'm probably just going to wrap up the recording aspect if everyone's okay. And if people want to mill about and chat, right, I'm going to turn this off.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Devin.